Hello, hello.
Hello, Jess. Hi.
I love that we're meeting for the first time ever, like live on TV, to like commemorate the occasion. I am so excited to meet you, Adam.
Thanks. I'm more stressed, I think, but yeah,
Why?
it's
No,
nice to
there's
meet
no
you.
reason to be stressed. This is the fun part. Interviews are always just a blast. You can just have fun with it, talk about all the ins and outs. So, no stress. I promise this will be completely painless and just a good time. So, hello to everyone who's joining us right now. And obviously, I am board game girl Jess, with host of Girl Stampede with Heavy Cardboard, and I'm interviewing the venerable Adam Kwapiński, who has done such amazing games. I mean, I'm personally in awe of Nemesis and what Nemesis did on Kickstarter, being a Kickstarter fiend myself. So that to me is just, yeah, incredible job with that, clearly. But you have done a number of games, co-designed, I think, almost half a dozen games about a decade ago, and now Heroes, Lords of Hellas that everyone has heard about. In between, Nemesis that I mentioned, Frostpunk, again, very well known. And now for Board&Dice, you're doing Origins, First Builders.
Yeah, that's true. I'm designing games from over 10 years now, I think, and the first game I co-designed was published by my own published company in 2012.
Okay.
But after a couple of years running my own company with my friend, I decided that all the business stuff is not good for me. I don't like that part of job. I just want to focus on design, on games, and this was quite a good decision because I think I'm truly horrible businessman, so it works much better for everyone.
So more the creative side, I take it then, than delving into. I do want to touch on that a little bit because you bring it up. And a lot of first-time designers or early in their career will attempt to publish their own games and bring them to, the gamers who will love them, and start to realize that there's a lot involved in that. What were some of the hardest things for you when you did that with your own publishing company? Like, what roadblocks have you run into with that?
What? There was a few, but the most irritating thing for me was, all the paperwork, because this is the work I don't feel I'm doing anything important. Yeah, just putting one paper to the other pile and go through all of them. It's not fun. I know there are people who have some sort of joy with doing that things. I'm not sure how, but
To
they
each
can
their
find.
own, right?
Yeah,
To each their own.
they can find something funny in this.
Right.
So this was one part, but when we're talking about publishing the games, the hard part is this is a big thing to do, because there is a lot of steps to publish a game, and it's only start with a game designer and prototype, but after that all the work that is done by publishers, starting from the graphic design and all that part that makes your game looks nice, and after that, of course, there is production, and truly even today, I remember my talks with factories, and it was hard. It was hard because, again, there is lots of small parts that is very important from the player perspective, and it's very hard to produce a game that is totally perfect.
Right.
Always when you get the game from the factory, the first thing you will find is some mistake, some stupid mistake.
Yes. Back and forth, it's constant, right? And then just all the different things that you have to do in regards to that are minutia. So I'm glad that you were able to find your niche and what you really wanted to do. In regards to games and to the design. So initially, you were doing co-designs too at this time, right? Was that anything to do with the fact that you were also doing the publishing company, or did you prefer that to start out?
You know what? It was just a natural way to do things, because I was working on my own games and on others game that I was creating with others then, because in for example, Nemesis starts in 2012 or 2013, so it was the same time I create co-designs. So no, it's even nowadays I love working together with other designers, because I think it is a great way to learn something new, to just find different way to do things, and this is exactly why I also like to work with other publishers, because if you work only with one publisher and you create successful games, there is a risk you will go the same way.
Right,
again
different versions of that same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is of course normal, but this is why I want to create different games with different companies, because each game is a challenge in that case, and
that makes sense.
It's important to develop yourself. Yeah.
So in chat, Jochen has a question. What inspired you to create Origins? Are you an Ancient Alien believer? And I would add to that, like, did Board&Dice, to your point you just made, did Board&Dice have any influence in that theme or with Origins? So two-part question there.
Yeah, okay. So let's start from the last one. No, I'm not ancient alien believer.
Okay.
I'm a guy who believes in science, and I'm also a historian. So it is hard for a historian to believe that kind of stuff. But about the inspiration, it was from Andre and Kuba from Board&Dice, because yeah, we were testing, I think, Dark Ages once in their office, and after that we just chat, and they said that, oh, it will be great if we create some city building game with dice. So this was the probably very, very short brief of that, but it stick in my head, and after, I don't know, 3 weeks, something like this, I met Kuba and show him first prototype of Origins. And from that, it was very, very fast, because this time this was very fast design if we talk about the first stage. So from the idea to the first prototype, it was a couple of weeks only, and it sometimes happens. Yeah, sometimes it's like Nemesis, when you create during 5 or 6 years, and sometimes it's just just much faster, and this was the other way. So
that's incredible to me. So as a pencil pusher myself, I love spreadsheets. I like doing all that documentation that you mentioned. To me, being able to create something like that in 3 weeks is incredible. That you're able to take that idea and just run with it. My thought is though, so then the Nemesis took years. Do you find any difference in the games, or do you feel differently about the games when they're kind of a faster creation process versus the longer one?
mm, uh, you know what? In the game itself, not, but it's all about creative process, because when you can create game quite fast. I always try to create first prototype as fast as I can, because before first prototype, in my opinion, there is nothing. Idea
Right.
is not a game. Idea is worthless, and in my head, each of my ideas looks fantastic, and it's a great
Right.
game, but it's not how it works after that. So I try to create first prototype as fast as possible, and
Mhm.
after that, of course, after first test, it shows how many changes you need, or if the game is anything worth working on, or you
Mhm.
have to trash it, because this is the part of the job, just to put your prototype in trash and forget about it. Uh,
Right.
yeah, but when you can create the first prototype and it works in most cases, the core mechanism is working already in the first prototype, it is
Mhm.
great, because you will don't have the hard part in the designing process, because
Right.
for example, in Nemesis there was, of course, moments where I was just pumped up to create, to check new ideas and so on, but sometimes there was a problem and it sticks in my head for, I don't know, 5 months, and
Right.
yeah, I was looking for solution. And if you cannot find a solution in 5 months, you start doubting that,
Oh,
okay,
sure.
maybe I can do that. Yeah,
Right.
it's too hard. So this is the advantage of creating the game that is quite good after the first prototype. But
Right.
of course, it depends, because I don't think there is a way to create every game like Origins.
Fair. Yeah.
It's and mostly I think you can recognize good designer, how he handled the harder projects,
Right.
because the easy
Those ones that
one,
are taking
yeah,
years and just getting
exactly,
stuck, and if you're sticking
yeah.
with it. So, I mean, that seems like really good advice for anybody who has some design ideas or is thinking about designing. Don't give up. There's not really any one right way for the game to, come out. It's not it has to be done in a couple of days or a couple of weeks. It could take years for this, or even problems. I mean, 5 months on one problem, I could see where you would get discouraged, but yet the end result was Nemesis. So clearly it was worth thinking about that and continuing with that. How did you get past some of those problems? Do you try to edit back, remove things? Like, how are you, when you're stuck like that, do you just
Mhm.
wait it out? What do you do?
Uh, Truly, after a couple of years, I learned that uh, first thing I have admit is that, okay, it sometimes happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes there will be hard problems. So what I do is to focus on other projects, because
Okay.
when you think about one problem, there is a little chance that you find solution, because truly, you put the pressure on you,
Yeah, you're too close to it.
It doesn't help in that case. So I always work on a couple of projects, about 8 or 10 projects in the same time. And when I stuck with one project, I just jump into the other. Of course, if I can, because sometimes in professional designing there is no time, there are some deadlines and so on.
Sure.
But still, I don't think that focusing on that will help. It's better to give just couple of days of break with one project, and it's you have more chance that you find your solution.
That's fair. See, I think that's great life advice, let alone just great board game designing advice. Just take a step away, take a break, come back to it at a later time. I have so many questions for you. If anybody in chat or watching has any questions, go ahead and chime in chat, and we'll get your questions answered as well. Yeah, I'm just so excited to hear. So we talked about Origins and that theme. Of any of your games, was there a theme that you really chose that resonated with you and you were like, this is a game I want to design around this theme? Or do you usually come at it from a mechanism side?
No, I don't truly believe that dualism we have always in conversation. There is a theme and there is a mechanism. I think more holistic way, because because game, if we don't talk about abstract games, because they are of course different type of game.
Fair.
Like for example, Mandala Stone is different kind of game, and there is no theme, so we have games without very specific theme. But most game have theme, and I think it's important part of the game. So for example, when I was creating Nemesis, the main idea was to create science fiction horror. So the fear was probably the most important idea there. But even when I create Origins, and the theme is totally from Board&Dice after the creation, but when I create Origins, I know it will be city building. I know it. Each part of it, each element will be something concrete. Yeah, we have our dice, and they are the die are workers, and so on. So the theme is important in the creation, because it can inspire you to some solutions, to some mechanism, and it is also very important when we talk about learning curve, because for example, again, Nemesis is very complex game when we talk about rules, but from my experience, lots of people who don't play very complex game can play Nemesis if there is one person who know the rules. People can play Nemesis because everything is quite intuitive. You can imagine what your character can do on that ship, and there is a rule which let you do that. So
yeah, I mean that actually, it seems to me like you're talking a lot about designing around gaming experience. Like, is that sort of what you're thinking of? Because with Nemesis, the fear, like it seems like you're trying to approach it more from that holistic. What is all of this going to create as far as a gaming experience for the player? Is that something that comes into mind for you?
Yeah, but of course it's not always like in Nemesis the thematic or emotional thing like fear. Yeah, sometimes it's also some more mechanical stuff. Yeah, so for example, in Origins, after after the first idea from Board&Dice, it was connecting dice with octagonals, because when we put 4 octagonals together, there is a great spot between them where we can put a die. And this was the idea when I start designing it, and I just start asking question. Okay, what we can do with that? What decision? What choices players can do with that mechanism? So mainly games for me are all about choices. That's the way I can answer.
That's a really good way to put it. We do have a question from Julia in chat, and I think this also speaks a little bit to gaming experience, because reading the rules is the first thing a player is going to do, and it's their first introduction to the game, whether it begins with talking about the theme and immersing them, but then going into setup in the gameplay. And Julia says that she has heard that in your prototypes, in instructions and player aids, you refer to the player as she. Why do you prefer this instead of using the singular they?
You know what? It's true. Yeah. In my prototypes, I think in last 4 years, when I start writing rule books in English, because first I was writing draft rule books in Polish, and it wasn't good decision, because as you hear, my English is not perfect, but it helps in that case, because when I want to say something in Polish, I will construct very long, very complex sentence, and it doesn't help in rule book. So it started about 4 years ago, and it's all about self-awareness and attention, because there is a problem about all the patriarchat stuff, and we are all involved in that, because this is a problem we create in hundreds years of our culture. So we cannot run away from this. And what I want to do is to pay more attention, because this is all I can do. I don't want to lie myself that I never do something stupid, or I never do something which can discriminate another person. I have no illusion about that. I'm just a human being, and that's true. So I try to, pay attention, hold the shield quite high, because if I let to lower that shield, I will be a worse person, and that's all.
Well, I really appreciate that. As a woman in gaming myself, I hear a lot from people that seeing me on streams or seeing me playing games helps them feel like they can participate. And, it is really, really important representation, more than I think even marginalized. I mean, obviously we realize this, but once you start to see yourself in things, it becomes really obvious that is something that we all need, is to see ourselves in these areas. So thank you for that. That is a really, really good thing. To delve into Origins a little bit, I am super curious about how you came up with really the scoring for Origins, because you have these 3 different tracks that you are working on, but then you're only scoring the 2 that you scored the least in. That to me is a very interesting mechanism for scoring. It frustrates me a little bit as a gamer, because I'm always about let me hyper focus, let me get those points. But I love that then I'm coming into this unique gaming experience and saying, okay, I can't just do what I do in every game. I have to actually pull back and make sure I'm balancing. So was that to frustrate maybe omni gamer, people who are kind of hyper-focused gamers? Where did that come from?
Okay, so sometimes, yes, I want to frustrate my players when I create games like, Nemesis or Frostpunk. Yeah, there can be a little frustration, because they're supposed to be tough and hard to survive. But in Origins, the reason was totally different. And of course, this is not very innovative thing, because Rainer Knizia do that things quite often, and I like that type of scoring. But here is again more about choices, because if you have 3 tracks and you have one action that lets you move on that tracks, probably if we choose to give you the highest point number, the highest track, you will go only that way. So after the first 2 choices, there will be no choice there. And I want to keep you choosing during the game, and this is why this is quite different in most of the games.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. Meaningful decisions, right? Having to continuously make those, and not just, it does definitely, prevent a runaway leader. I mean, you have to be balancing. And that is fun. Frustrating, but fun. I'll give you that, even if it's not my normal MO for playing. And that's exactly what I love. So, I'm a fan. I was like, this is terrible for me and great. I love it. So how do you come to that is my question. Like, do you have a play testing group? Are you just doing that with the publishers? Like, how do you figure out how these, early prototypes are going to work, and what you need to focus on and change? What do you use for that?
First of all, before I create the first prototype, there is a lot of designing and a lot of Excels in that, because I even work on rules before I create first prototype. So I have in most cases draft rule book before any element of game. So first is just analyze everything very carefully. Make some Excels to check where I am with that things. Of course, this is not about perfect balance or something like that, but just to more to understand my own game better before first play. Because if we count different things, if we count probability, if we count how many resources players can get during the whole game, and so on and so on, we understand our game much better. So this is what happens before first prototype, and after that, the most important is first playtest, because after that first playtest, I have to decide what to do. Is the game going to trash and forget about it, or if it's something that we can work on? Because in most cases, it's not like in Origins that, okay, we have quite a good game now, and now we can just polish everything. In most cases, you have to throw out about 80% of the gameplay and start again with that. What I want to check is if the core mechanism is working. This is the most important thing. And if after first playtest I see that, okay, the main mechanism is okay, I can trash everything else and try to find different way to put another mechanism in games, but I have the core. And if the core is not working, probably the game should go out, and I don't want to work on it, because it will be a totally different game if I change the core mechanism. So I don't want to just to repair something which is not working and so important in the same time.
Right. So keeping track of that.
After that, it's lots of playtesting. First with my friends, with my family, and those playtesting are for me, it's internal playtesting, as I like to name it. So I change the game during that. I try to repair all the things I can find there.
Okay.
And after I cannot find anything more, I can upgrade. I start to looking for a publisher, and because first of all, I think the game is quite ready, and the second, what is more important, I don't see any mistakes anymore, which means that I don't see any mistakes, not that there is no mistakes anymore. So I need another person, I need publisher who will look at the game and try to find what we can upgrade from that point. And of course, how to make this game a product, because I'm creating a games, the publishers are creating a product, and it's not the same.
Well, I mean, I think publishers are any publisher that listens to this is going to highlight that and be like, all right, I need to work with Adam, because that is refreshing to hear. A lot of times, games do come in and they're huge and it looks great, but there's MSRP to consider and what these components cost. And that has to be a consideration getting games to people, unfortunately. So that's but of course you did do some self-publishing in the beginning. So I think you understand that to a degree.
Painfully learning, but yeah.
Yeah, painfully, but yes. But yeah, and that probably helped. How painful that was brings that into understanding. So you can ask again, do you think that Poland has a great board game fan base in general? Of course, in recent years, a lot of Polish publishers have become more well-known: Board&Dice, Lucky Duck, Portal, Awaken Realms, and then designers as well. So do you think that is up and coming? Are you finding that there's just a big gaming community in Poland? What are your thoughts on that?
There is a quite big community nowadays in Poland, and it's still growing. That's true. Of course, we have old board gamers who remember the 90s and games from
Don't say
that
old
time.
in 90s. Don't do it.
I start playing board games then, so yeah, I also remember that times. But of course, we have lots of new people who enter that community, and I think now the community is more open, because there is no stigma as it was in 90s, that games are only for children. So so in Poland, adults who play board games in 90s was a little nerdy and a little weird, and it makes that community quite defensive that time, because it is how it works. Now, when there is acceptance for playing board games and it's normal activity, like I don't know, my grandparents play bridge, for example. It wasn't weird, that adults play bridge, and nowadays it's exactly the same with board games, I think. So
it's true. Somehow nerdy has become cool. So we could still say that we're all weird and nerdy, but that somehow now is at the forefront and totally accepted. which is good to see because I was right there with you in the 90s being weird and nerdy. Let's see. Another question from your account. If you had a free card, which designer would you co-create a game with?
Okay, it's easy for me. It will be Vlada Chvátil because I just admire how different games and in the same time how great games he can create. Because you know, if in one mind you have code names and through the ages there is truly
breadth, right?
Great,
like that's
great design. So
yeah, that he can go from something small, party-like, and still a really great game, and then bring it to something as huge as Through the Ages. I completely agree with you. That is absolutely amazing. Though we do disagree on one thing. I know that Through the Ages is one of your favorite games. What do you think of Nations?
You know what? I play Nations and I quite like it. I also have it still because truly I'm a Civilization fan. So I try to have each Civilization team game I can. And Nations was quite cool, but I don't know, it was third or fifth play when I play with my nephew. And we broke the game, and we broke it totally. So from that time, I just have some problems with Nations. I think it's lighter version of Through the Ages.
Yes.
But it has some problems, not very serious ones, but if you try to optimization in that game, there is a way to broke that game.
I mean, we can say the same about Through the Ages, but I won't get with the military.
Yeah, that's true. But you know, in Through the Ages, I have a fun story. As you know, I love this game and I play a lot of this game, and was quite a good at it. And after, I don't know, couple of hundreds plays I have, I find a guy from Board Game Arena and play with him. And he won with me, making twice as many victory points as I. So I play him again, and he do it again with totally different strategy. I check him. He was the second on the ranking on Through the Ages on
the like, what is
Board Game Arena. And only after, I don't know, third or fourth game, we have a tie.
Yeah, that feels good.
Yeah, exactly. That was the best tie I have in board game history. But you know, if you know the game so well that you play it hundreds of times, and after that you find a guy who can beat you like a child in that game, and with no chance for you, it means that there is a depth.
There's a lot there
in game like
I
this.
know, and that's true. I mean, it's interesting to look back. I feel like when in the 90s, as you said, games, it was you played them 100 times, and now there's so many games that we don't tend to do that. It tends to be more focused on your initial play and some follow-up plays, and then maybe it makes it on your shelf permanently, or you end up going and get something different. Does that impact how you design games? Are you looking at this for these long play experiences for folks at game night that hopefully they play 100 times? Or are you also having to be cognizant of there's so many games that it's more being kind of flashy, getting into their table, but maybe then they move on because there's more that initial experience, I guess I'm asking, than that long-term depth? Or how do you try to balance that?
It depends from the game, because there is different kinds of games. If we talk about any strategic game, I think there have to be a long-term depth, because without it, the game is not very good. If you know everything about the game after 3 plays, and the game is considered like a heavy Euro game, something goes wrong, because this is not how it should work. But still, the important part is that you cannot forget about having fun from the first play, because it's not the explanation you can give to your players that, okay, for the first 10 times you will play my game, it will be boring, but after that, nobody do that. I cannot imagine, for example, writer who promised something like this about his book. Okay, but you will find
You'll
it
love
funny,
it.
but after,
Just read these 4 different iterations. Book 5 is amazing.
Yeah, exactly, something like this. So we as designers always have to remember that the first play or second play are most important when we talk about liking or disliking game. But still, after that, this is great if somebody can play your game for 50 times and find something interesting in that game. Still something new. But it's in different games you make it in different ways. Because in strategic games it's all about your opponents, different tactics, and your response on that tactics. And in games like, for example, more adventure, like Nemesis, it's more like some random events that will change your decision and will change what happened on the board. So in that games, it should create different story, because adventure game can create some kind of story.
Right. Well, I know how humble you are, and I know you're not searching for the compliment here, but your breadth in that is amazing. Your ability to do that unfolding kind of storytelling game, or to jump in and have a game that you're just playing and doing strategy right away. So, sorry, I'm a fan,
Thanks,
so I'm going to gush a little.
What to do with that. But thanks.
So we do have some questions I want to reach for. Dice Nations, the dice game. What are your thoughts on that?
I played it once, I think. Yeah, I played it once and I like it. I remember I like it. It was funny because it is very, very simple and very fast game, but it captured what was most important in Nations. After the play, I think I was playing with Kuba from Board&Dice.
Nice.
I even check if I can find it somewhere, because I like that game. It was a little too light for me as a civilization game, but party games, because party games are totally different, and
play again and again. So
exactly. I can't even count how many times I play Code Names or 5 Seconds or something like this. Yeah, but this is totally different. I have very compulsive need of playing a game if I like it in the time. So when, for example, when I first time find Galaxy Tracker, I was playing it couple times each day. Because I love that game. Of course, after couple of weeks it stops because truly nobody wants to play it with me again and again.
Kindred souls we are. Say, I do the
yeah.
same thing.
So it depends from the time. Last game that do it for me was Feast of Odin, and I played a couple of times with other people, and I start playing it solo like crazy. It was on my table all the time. Still, it's a very big, very complex game, so it's hard to find somebody to play it, especially in nowadays in pandemic. But yeah, I think I played a lot in the solo version. Even I'm not a fan of solo games because I normally I don't play solo games. I don't find it very attractive. If I play solo game, I probably will play video game than board game.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever used to? Because I found myself, I used to like solo games a lot, and now that's kind of evolved. Do you find that your taste for games, whether it be solo version versus multiplayer versus, what have you found that that's evolved over time for you?
I think I always was more competitive player, so it makes me want to play with other people and fight with them and try to gain more points. Because this is totally unique, and what other player can do is to surprise you during the game, and that's the fun part. I play some solo some games that are solo or have solo mode, but in that case I try to break my own high score, so I probably will play only games with some high scores there because I'm a competitive player, so this is
even
the way
I
play solo games. The only game I truly like, if we're talking about solo games, was This War of Mine. And this is so different game, and in terms of mechanism, there is a couple of brilliant ideas.
Really brilliant. It's true.
And I like it very, very much.
That makes sense. So you talked about how you will design multiple games at once to kind of give yourself a break or be able to pull away, focus on something else. But you have some hobbies that I found interesting that maybe you also do to kind of give yourself some time away. So what are some of your hobbies?
Okay, you are probably asking for the weird one or weirdest one here. So I was an Irish dancer for 15 years, I think. Of course, amateur one. So nothing.
That's
very
amazing.
serious, but,
that to me is amazing. It looks incredible, and it looks like it takes a lot. Like you have to be really physically fit and focused.
This kind of dance is quite difficult, especially at the start, because it's in other dances, in most of them, you can quite fast learn the basics, and in Irish dance there is a big gap between the point you start dancing and you learn your first dance. It's a couple of months.
Really?
If we talk about the sport version of that dance, this is
because you're learning pieces that you need. Is that like you have to make your way up to be able to do a full dance?
Yeah, you learn the pieces, you learn moves, you learn to control your whole body, because
Right.
there is lots of muscles you don't know before you start Irish dancing, and you have to train that
Okay.
muscle. So if you have no experience in other kind of sports or dances, like classic dance, for example, it will be hard to start. But
That's
after that, it's totally great. I love Irish music. I love Irish culture. I'm also fan of Celtic mythology. So all the stuff from that side of the world,
mm-hmm.
and I always dance to have fun. The most I was on a stage couple of times. I was traveling to some competitions, but my favorite part was always St. Patrick's Days and
Yeah.
live music in a pub, dancing on the
Yes.
tables.
Okay,
That
so
that was
when we do
crazy.
meet in person, this is going to happen. I am very into Irish culture as well. Both my paternal grandparents immigrated from Ireland, and I've
Okay,
studied
yeah.
it as this kind of homage to them. So yes, I got my Irish freckles, green eyes, and we're gonna be hitting up the Irish pub
Okay.
somewhere, sometime. That sounds amazing. But I am gonna bring that back to board games a little bit, because what you're talking about there is something that I get asked a lot, as far as bringing other people into our world of board games.
Mhm.
And what I mean is that we're talking about some really heavy games here, and they have multiple mechanisms, and the strategy and the depth comes from those working together in different ways. And part of the issue we have in bringing other people into the hobby, I think, is that we understand card drafting, what a snake draft is,
Mhm.
how to lay tiles, adjacency, even just down to terminology. Like, I wouldn't have known orthogonally adjacent other than
Mhm.
from board games. And we start to use terminology that we're now familiar with, that I think does keep newer players out of the hobby. So, do you find that anything you've learned in other parts of, potentially, because I'm hearing about Irish step dancing, I had to learn about muscles and movements and where my toes have to go to be able to do one dance. Do you think that any of your life experiences have brought you to kind of that understanding of how to create these games, put it together, but yet make it available to multiple people, which I would argue you've done with Nemesis, and I believe when Origins hits as well, people will see that too.
You know what? I in part of my life before I starting designing games, I was working on university, because as I
Wow.
said, I was a historian, and I
Yeah.
give some lecture about that, and uh, my my tutor, I think it will be the best
Yeah.
word for that, have said once that the history is always interesting, only historian can be boring.
Okay.
And what was important to me from that is when you write a book or create a board game or do anything else, uh, it's important to remember about player, about reader, and so on. Because, for example, if you write a book, and of course you can have something interesting to say, like,
Hmm.
for example, some historical research you are describing in that book, but
Right.
it have to be right in an interesting way, because
Hmm.
somebody will read it, and it will be great if that guy or girl didn't go asleep after reading your book, because it's not how it should work. So
Right.
it's similar in board games. You
Yeah.
have to remember that somebody will play your game, and sometimes for me, it's about maybe not writing the rule book, because publishers are much better than me in that case, and I happy that they are writing the official final rule book, not not I, and you should be happy as well. But when I think about mechanism of my games, I try to not add too many layers to that, because it's sometimes a big mistake for designers who start creating their first game, that they think the depth is connected with the number of elements or number of mechanism or anything else. It's not. This is this is two different things, and what is important to make the core mechanism very visible in the game you're creating. So of course you can add some different things, but always people who sit at the table have to know what they can do in their round, what the game is about. And this is very important for me. And even if we are talking about very complex game, like again, I go back to Vlada Chvátil and Through the Ages. This is very complex game, and of course it's because this is civilization game, so there is lots of going on. We need leaders, we need wonders, we need technology, military, and so on. But when we look at the core mechanism, it's very simple. You have some action points, you buy cards from the row on the table, and you play that cards. And every it's not like okay, if you want to build a wonder, you will draw a token from the bag. If you want to attack somebody, you will get a pile of dice and roll the dice. No, everything is in that core mechanism. It's just on the lower level, you see the tree of choices. So it's a little different to play technology, a little different to play building, and so on. And this is how I think about games, and this is how I think even harder game can be more accessible to people.
It still can be straightforward, even if it's going to have depth and strategy and mechanisms that really complexly work together. Doesn't mean it has to be difficult to understand what you have in front of you and what your choices are.
We have Go, and this game is very simple, but it's still very deep game.
It's a lifestyle game, right? Like this is 100%, and yet it is really simple to understand the rules. 100%.
So this is two different things.
So last thing, as myself having a partner for the last several years who is an avid poker player, what about poker? How much do you play poker? I'd love to know. What role does that play for you? Does that impact how you design games?
Okay, so I like playing poker because I like playing any games. That's the important part. I play video game, I play sports game, I play poker card game. No matter if it has game in the core of it, I want to play it. But I play poker a lot, not now, because nowadays it's pandemic and only online poker is available, and I'm not a big fan of online poker because I love the live version of the I was playing quite intense about 3 years ago, I think. I even try to participate in some Polish championships and that
Wow.
kind of stuff, without very great success, but it wasn't so bad.
Okay.
There was about 1,000 players or a little more, and
Wow.
I was in first 100, so it wasn't so bad.
Okay.
But still there nowadays there are so many professional great poker
Yes.
players that you can compete if you are not into a poker for a full time, because it's very complex.
So for you, still
complex
more of a
game.
hobby than
Yeah,
at this point.
it's a hobby. I love also cards because in the past I was trying some card tricks and all the stuff with shuffling cards and making them in different ways. So so poker was quite natural way to stay in touch with the cards.
Yeah, that makes sense. And back to the roots, right? Just a deck of cards, and we can do this much with it. There's so much. I think it brings. A lot of designers mention when I've spoken to them that cards makes them humble. The fact that one deck of cards can do all this, and they're taking all these components to do something else. It just, it's kind of humbling that, it doesn't take all of that to make a great game. So just wrapping up, chat wants to know, what new games do you have coming up? If you can announce them, if there's no NDA and you can you announce anything that you are working on now or have coming up? And Mario would like to know if that includes anything in the world of Lords of Hellas.
Okay, so now I have to be very, very careful about about that one. So now I'm working on I think 7 or 8 titles.
Wow.
Some of them are games you already know, because this is the late stage of development. Like, for example, in Frostpunk on Nemesis Lockdown, we are polishing the game. But is there any game I can tell something more?
Looking at your list, what do you got?
So okay, there will be probably next year some Kickstarter of quite different, quite small dungeon crawler, and this is what I can say about it. There will be also my co-design with another author that will be published in next year. More Euro game with some worker placement mechanism with some twist, and I mean literally twist in that case. And there is a one big game I working with Awaken Realms on, but this is I can say anything
more.
Because we won't
get you in trouble then.
They will find me, and,
they will find you. Yeah, but 7 or 8 games, that's really impressive that you're doing all of that at once. But so it has been a pleasure talking to you. I was so excited about this. It was great to virtually meet you. Clearly, we're meant to find an Irish pub at the next con we're at together and hang out. So I'm really looking forward to that too. And for everyone else who is watching, there's a lot more content coming up for Board&Dice Con, so stay tuned. And we will head into the break. And thank you again, Adam. This has been awesome.
Thank you, Jess. Thank everybody, and have fun playing. That's what I can say.